Hey family, welcome back to Jack's Making It Home. Now before we get started, no, we did not accidentally frame this poorly.
We're not in an argument and we do not have a special guest joining us today.
This empty seat right here is actually going to be the first part to our video for today, and that is going to be 20 tips / hacks for your future travels. Tip number one, sandwich those seats. Pick the window, pick the aisle when you're booking in hopes that nobody sits or chooses that middle seat. If you have a full flight, of course somebody might or have to sit there. Yeah. If that's the case, just ask them to swap with one of you guys and you still get to sit beside each other's. The hope is that nobody, like I said, sits there, and then you can do one of these numbers. You can put your bag there. You have that empty seat to do whatever you want to. If you have a bigger plane and you're in the middle of the 3 rows or the 3 sections of the plane, choose seats 1 and 3 or 2 and 4, and then maybe you'll have an entire row to yourself where one person can lay down. Well, we got to do that on our last flight coming back from somewhere. I can't remember.
Lovely.
But yeah, it's perfect. It's not first class, but it's kind of like first class. But anyway,
we don't do first class.
Let's get these seats out of here. I am out of breath.
Moving those chairs, man.
I was moving too fast. Jeez. And we're back. Tip number 2, avoiding jet lag. So there's really no real way to avoid jet lag, but what we found out works for us is to get your flight to land late in the afternoon or evening time, or even at night. So when you get to your hotel after you get everything situated, you can just go to sleep, get some rest, and be ready to attack the next day a little more refreshed. So when you're booking, adjust for that local time and try to land, like I said, in the late afternoon or evening.
Tip number 3. Now, if you're packing, try to pack either a carry-on or a checked bag, and if you can, avoid packing both. Why? Because it's kind of a nuisance when you have to travel with a lot of luggage, and it also can be more expensive traveling with multiple bags.
Sure.
Now, if you are packing a carry-on, make sure that you put an extra outfit in your carry-on just in case your checked bag gets lost. That way you have at least 1 pair of change of clothes. Now, for tip number 4, we're going to talk about ways to hopefully prevent your checked bag from getting lost.
Or at least lessen the chances.
Lessen the chances, let's put it that way. So the first thing that we would recommend is to avoid short layover times. We recommend at least having an hour in between the 2 flights. And let me tell you, some people, I remember when we first started traveling a lot, I would feel like, oh yeah, that's only 30 minutes layover, perfect. I don't want to be in the airport all day. It's stressful because by the time you land and deboard, we've had to run through the airport at least twice.
Yeah, twice. And
there's been a couple of other times when it's been really close. You're sitting on the plane, you're like, oh, like I don't want to get left. Usually the officials at the airport really help you out, but still, at least have an hour in between your flights. And because if you're hustling and bustling, then the crew who's handling your luggage, they're also moving really fast, and that can cause more of a chance for them to lose your luggage. The other thing is avoid the number of layovers that you have. So if you can help it, try to schedule your traveling plans so that you maybe just have 1 to 2 layovers instead of 3 to 5 layovers. Like Raja likes to say, the less amount of hands that have to touch your bags, the higher chance that they won't get lost. So
yep, absolutely. Tip number 5, your valuables. When you get to your destination, definitely be mindful of your valuables. I like to keep them in the front of myself, preferably in a zippered pocket. So if you have zippered pants or something like that, put them in your front pocket zipped up, not in a backpack that's easily accessible. You don't want your passport stolen. Let's put it that way. Another tip, like if you want to put it like in a purse or something like that, that's okay.
I love traveling with zippered purses.
Right, so it's okay to have a shoulder strap, but keep it in front of you. Try to keep a hand on it or something like that. Don't have the purse, just dangling at your side with no extra security. Somebody could just snatch it out of your hand. Doing some research, I also saw that it's common for young ladies to have the shoulder purses but not have it in front of them, or just have it to their side with no no hand on it or anything like that. And then like maybe like in the subway or something like that, somebody might come by with a knife. rip the or slice the strap really fast, and then they have your purse. So just be mindful of all your valuables.
Yeah, in our travels thus far, we've never come across that or even seen it happening to someone else, but be safe. Tip number 6, this is kind of before you're even taking a trip, check out the rewards that you have on your credit cards, because we know that we have a couple of credit cards where they have really good travel rewards. So make sure that you're using those cards responsibly, and therefore when you go to take your travel, you can redeem those rewards that you've earned for using those cards. Also, when you are actually traveling, it's sometimes more beneficial to use your credit card if you're able to, because you avoid the foreign transaction fees. Whereas when you're using your debit card, I know one time we were out and Raja was like, you know you're gonna pay more fees if you're using your debit card. And so yeah, then I started using my credit card. So anyhow, just make note of the cards that you have that give you rewards for travel.
Yep. Tip number 7, print everything out. I'm a pretty big advocate of,
a very big advocate.
Printing everything out, but also a big advocate of preserving nature. I really enjoy nature. So printing and paper, like I try to minimize it, to save the trees obviously and to be eco-friendly, but print everything out, because I keep all of our information, our itineraries, our hotel vouchers, car vouchers, excuse me, all that stuff. I keep it on my phone, but I want a backup copy just in case something happens to that phone or that iPad where it's lost, stolen, damaged, and you can't do anything else. So my maps, anything, I print out an extra and I keep it all in a folder.
Yep. He does. Okay, tip number 8, notify your bank of your travel plans or your banks. Now they've made this very easy. You can call them, but most banks, if you have the mobile app, you can go ahead and just list out your travel plans on the mobile app or in the web browser. Just be sure to do this. You don't want to have the funds to travel and spend money when you get to where you're going, swipe your card, and then find out that your account is frozen. That is no fun at all. So be sure to make your travel plans with your bank.
Absolutely, guys. So tip number, what were we on,
9?
Tip number 9, don't take out too much cash. My rule of thumb is to have no more than $100 or so, because you just want to, again, lessen those chances of you losing a lot of your valuables. So do that, take out a little bit of cash. And then the other thing is, don't take it out in the airport, because they usually have the highest conversion rate, so you're not going to get as much bang for your buck. So go ahead and get to your city, wherever you're going, hit up the ATM or the local bank and get your cash there. Also, before you get there, do your research beforehand, because some places you don't even necessarily need cash. Like when we went to Dubai recently, you didn't even need cash. Like you could just walk around with your credit cards, because pretty much every single place had a credit card. But then on the other hand, you might know that you need a cab or something, and the cab only takes cash. So just be mindful. If you need some cash beforehand, go to your bank at home. Again, just try to avoid the airport and don't carry too much cash.
Yeah, and you can get your money converted before you leave. So that's what he's saying. Okay, next, tip number 10. Make sure you research your chargers and adapters that you'll need for all of your electronic devices. And we have some examples, because when you're traveling abroad especially, they use different adapters. So you want to make sure that you are able to charge your devices. Now we got this cool one off of Amazon, and it was probably $10 or less than $10, but it has several different countries.
Yeah, it has Europe, UK, USA, and then you have different adapters like within it, or you have several plugs that you can go in, USB ports, like get something like this. Yeah,
so that's great to travel with. And then another type of charger that we got when we went to the Grand Canyon, which was definitely remote. They didn't have any outlets in the Grand Canyon, but was that solar charger. I'm gonna hold it up one more time for you. So this is a solar strip or pad, and so it has a USB port here. So all you need to do is plug in, if you have your cable, plug in your USB there, and then all this bad boy needs is some sunlight, and you have a charger. I like carrying this around ever since we've had it, just in case. Sometimes we're traveling, we're on trains or even in cars, but we can't access the adapters if we're like in a taxi or something like that. And so I can charge the phone using this. So just make sure you research what type of adapters and chargers that you'll need and that you pack them up for your trip.
Absolutely. And along those lines, one more small hack, sometimes your block, the little square piece that your charger goes into, gets lost or damaged or something like that.
Yes.
With the modern day TVs,
actually broke the other day.
There you go. With the modern day TVs, on the back of them you have the USB ports on them, so you can just plug up your cable to your TV in your hotel room or your hostel or something like that. And then, do hostels even have TVs? I've never been in a hostel. I don't know if they have TVs, but a modern
some do.
Hook it up to a modern TV. You can charge your device that way. Tip number 11, prep your entertainment for your long flights or any flight in general. You want that entertainment. Sometimes your plane might have, music or movies on it, but it might not even be anything that you're interested in.
Right.
So prep what you want, whether that's iTunes, Spotify, Netflix, your ebooks, whatever.
Yep.
Prep your entertainment, and along those lines, invest in some decent headphones. It's beneficial.
Very much so. So next we're talking about food. And tip number 12 is to make sure you pack your snacks. Pack your snacks. I can't say it enough. What we like to do is go to a wholesale store and buy items in bulk. And listen to me, when you buy your items, you need to put some thought into this. We like to buy items that don't melt, that aren't sticky, messy, that aren't going to spoil, obviously. And we like packing things also that aren't smelly, and that aren't going to mess with your stomach. You don't want to be on a plane
for 12 hours. And
having the BGs. No, not a good idea. So we generally pack things like trail mix, breakfast bars, granola bars.
My go-to right now, if you've ever been on a Delta Airlines flight, they got these delicious cookies. I don't know what kind of cookies they are, but they're delicious. If you go to Target, they sell them in packs, like you can buy them. Like, go to Target, you can get them. And we got I think 3 packs last time, and we ate at least a good 2.5 of them.
We were traveling with other people, and we ate them for almost 2 weeks. We ate the cookies though. He also likes Twizzlers.
Yeah, I do.
Packs and packs of Twizzlers. But so make sure you pack your snacks. Now, this is not only beneficial for when you are on the plane or a train or however you're traveling. It's also helpful for when you arrive at your destinations. A big cost of a trip is the eating. So we like to have snacks because sometimes they hold us over in between meals. We don't have to go and hit up the gas station or convenience stores while we're traveling. And also sometimes it's enough, especially if you have something that's a little filling, like a breakfast bar or granola bars, trail mix, that we've turned into meals sometimes. So just eat a big breakfast at wherever we're staying, then do our snacks for lunch, and then eat a really nice dinner. So pack your snacks.
Moving on, guys. Tip number 13, additional vacations. Now, we talked about layovers already.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't, control a really long layover. Sometimes, for example, you might have a 12-hour layover in London. Turn that into an additional trip. That's an add-on to your vacation, and it's so amazing. You get to see a whole nother city that you necessarily weren't even thinking about, maybe, or you didn't even know about. It's pretty dope. So just take that time and turn it into an extra vacation, and it might even be enough time for you to, I guess, get an introduction to the city. And it's hey, this is one that I want to revisit. Or some airlines like Iceland Air, they do what's called stopovers instead of layovers, where you can move your flight to another day. And that's actually what we did when we visited Iceland, where you can actually, add a whole nother day to your trip. And it's pretty dope.
Yeah, really dope. Tip number 14, I'm going back to food, but this time it's do not eat near attractions. So if you're going to really popular attractions, maybe try to eat beforehand. Pack some of your snacks with you, or eat afterwards. Now, the only reason is because it's usually a lot more expensive when you're eating near the really popular attractions. And you said that sometimes the food is a little bit more authentic when you get away from the top spots.
Absolutely. When we were in Rome, we ate at one of the popular spots around Trevi Fountain, and it was really convenient. We were really hungry, so we just stopped there and ate. It wasn't terrible, but it was definitely, the price was definitely marked up, and it wasn't the best. And then later that night, we actually went off the beaten path and ate with locals at this little corner spot that barely spoke any English, and the food was banging.
It was amazing.
Like,
the people were really nice and the food was great.
And it was cheaper. It was cheaper. So
it was a lot cheaper.
Yeah, so definitely avoid those major attractions like the Eiffel Tower or Trevi Fountain, for example.
Right.
And the dogs are coming. So tip.
It's snowing and I think it's a snow truck.
I'm trying to let them bark if they're gonna bark. I don't think they're gonna bark.
They're not gonna bark.
But they are gonna come over here. So tip number 15, guys, we're gonna go ahead and move on to that, is bring a first aid kit with you. So when you're traveling, have a first aid kit handy. I think we have one here. We don't have our typical one. We couldn't locate it, but just have a first aid kit because you never know for your emergencies. And then the other thing that we got when we went to the Grand Canyon as well was this life straw. We do carry this as well around as well. And this takes out the contamination in pretty much any water and just makes it safe to drink. So you need your water, you need your life straw. You should get one.
Tip number 16 is that you want to pack some toiletries in either your carry-on or your personal item that you're taking on your plane. This is really good so that you can just freshen up. Also pack some wipes, so important, helps you freshen up. Also helps to keep things sanitary around you. Sometimes, you know, you get on the plane and the window or the armrest is looking a little icky. You have your wipes that you can just go ahead and take care of that. So be sure to pack some toiletries and also make sure you research the specifics about what is allowed in terms of when you're traveling, especially on an airplane. They have, you know, certain liquids can only be a specific amount, so do that research as well.
Moving on, tip number 17, renting a car versus local transportation. Again, just do your research beforehand. Sometimes, you know, renting a car is more beneficial than local transportation and vice versa. When we went to South Africa, renting a car was good because our places that we wanted to go were very spread out. And the roads were very well maintained and the signage was very good. So it made sense to rent a car. But say when we went to London, there's a lot of traffic, there's a lot of poor parking, so the signage isn't the best, so it made sense for us to use the underground, so we use local transportation. So just do your research and move with whatever works for you.
Okay, tip number 18. So you want to make sure you download the proper communications apps. Now this is primarily for communicating with folks back home. However, it's also beneficial for if you want to communicate with the person you're traveling with and you're in a setting that does have Wi-Fi. So we've had instances where sometimes I'm holding a line somewhere and you run to the restroom or something like that. And if we're somewhere that has Wi-Fi and we did get a little separated or had to move or change course, we were able to communicate with one another. Now this has thankfully been pretty easy because nowadays most of the apps that are already on our phone, social media apps, already have communications devices built into them. So if you have Instagram or Facebook, they both have ways that you can video chat with people, audio chat, and of course send messages. Also, if you are Apple device people, you have iMessage, which you can communicate over Wi-Fi with that. So just make sure you coordinate with whomever you're trying to communicate with. Make sure you both have the proper apps, the same apps to download it before your travels.
Absolutely. Tip number 19, and this is actually one of my favorite hacks because I am 6'5". We don't typically do, you know, business class or first class or something like that. So every little bit of leg room that I get is beneficial. We talked about sandwiching those seats. That was tip number 1. So I can do again one of those numbers. Imagine there's a seat right there.
He does that.
But yeah, so I do. But yes, tip number 19 we're actually going to get to it this time is the owl armrest. I wish I had an armrest right here, but just imagine I'm on the armrest. The pivot point is back here at my elbow. There's usually a button right here that you can push and lift that armrest up, and at that point, if you're on a longer flight where, you know, the aisles aren't as busy, people are asleep, you can kind of stick a knee out or stretch that leg out or something like that just to give yourself some more breathing room. Every airline does not have this feature, but the majority of the ones that we've been on, I've been able to lift that armrest, and it is clutch.
All right, tip number 20, Google Maps.
Yeah.
This is a must do. So wherever you're traveling to, and mostly like if you're in a car or if you're walking somewhere and you know you don't know how to get from point A to point B, before you travel, go ahead and go to Google Maps and download the map. So you can find it, get the directions, and download it so that you can access that map when you are offline. Now, Google Maps are amazing. They've helped us so many times. And the only thing that you're missing from being connected to Wi-Fi is, you know, the little dot that you can follow when you're using a GPS? That dot is there, but it just doesn't move. So each step of the way, it'll kind of have the dot and show you where you are, and then it'll say there's 5 kilometers or miles to the next destination, and then you click the arrow to go to the next step, and you see the dot now at that 5 kilometer ahead, and so on and so forth. So what I like to do, I'm usually the navigator and Raja is the driver. I kind of just follow where the dot would go on the map by looking at the lines and the curvatures of the roads, and it's pretty simple. Google Maps, we've gone to some really remote locations. We're talking back roads in South Africa where even the pavement ran out. We were, you know, driving along
where it seemed like we should have four-wheel drive.
Yeah, and Google Maps still held us down. So sometimes, you know, I like looking for, you may not always have street names, but just again, when you're following the curves on the map, sometimes you can see that there's an entrance, and so I just follow the entrances, and maybe they are missing 1 or 2 every now and then, but for the most part, it's really, really good. And it has helped us a ton. So make sure you download Google Maps, and also, as he said before, he prints everything out. Yep. So print those maps out as well, which is a good tip, because if you do have glitches or errors, technological difficulties, then you have the paper maps there, and you still can get to where you're trying to go.
Onyx likes playing with the backdrop, and Sarge is tired of us making them lay down. But we do have a bonus tip for you guys, and that is TSA PreCheck / Global Entry. I wish I would have known this before we jumped on TSA PreCheck, but Global Entry is actually the better buy in our opinion, because with Global Entry, you also get TSA PreCheck. TSA PreCheck, they're both good for 5 years. TSA PreCheck is $85. Global Entry is $100. Now TSA PreCheck, that is basically, think of it as a fast pass when you're going through security. You'll have a line for your regular security, and then you'll have a line for TSA PreCheck. Right. Now TSA PreCheck, you're considered a low risk traveler, so you don't have to take off like your shoes or take the laptop out of your bag, take your auto wear, hats off, all that good stuff. Right. You just put it in the conveyor belt thingamabobber, and you just walk through the security, and it's that fast. So when we went to, me and my father, we went to Florida last year, and he does not have TSA PreCheck. I was not rude. I did not just leave him, but I was a little impatient, so I did do the PreCheck, and ours was, I went through in like 2 minutes, and he had like 15 or 20 minutes. So I just waited for him right outside the security gate. But that just shows, you know, the benefit of TSA PreCheck. And then Global Entry, you just have a kiosk when you're returning to the U.S. from flying international. Right. And you just use, like I said, an automated kiosk, and it just expedites that waiting in the customs line. So you don't even have to do that. So if you want to do the TSA PreCheck, it's tsa.gov. And if you want to do the Global Entry, it's C-B as in boy, P as in Peter.gov. You do both of those online. Now, we are not professionals. Let us say that right off the line.
Not travel experts.
Not at all. So we learn from you guys. You guys learn from us. So if you have any tips,
leave them in the comments below.
We really, really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a big old thumbs up. The dogs are tired. Leave us a comment. Give us a little share. And until next time, be blessed.
See you guys.